Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. As Israel continues to pound Gaza following the Hamas attacks, many have spoken out against rallies in support of the terrorist group. In a leaked memo, the CBC says its journalists cannot refer to Hamas as a terrorist organization. Sun political columnist Brian Lilly is outraged and has the details. And 4 people have been arrested following an alleged sexual assault that took place at Chinook High School last week.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. An Israeli military official says more than 1,800 people have been killed since the weekend surprise attack by Hamas. This comes amid rising concerns that the conflict is continuing to escalate. Brigadier General Dan Goldfuss says Israel is going on the offensive against both Hamas and any other extremist group in Gaza. The Israeli military pounded the Gaza area known as Ramal. Military officials say they gave a warning to civilians before launching their attack, which leveled a large number of buildings. Officials with the United Nations say Israel's complete siege risks compounding an already dire humanitarian situation. They also say they're shocked by allegations of mass killings by members of Palestinian armed groups. The UN is urging the terrorist group known as Hamas to release all of the civilians they have taken hostage. There have been rallies both in support of Hamas and Israel, which took place around the world since the vicious attacks in Gaza. Mourners gathered in France, in Colombia, and Argentina to show their solidarity for Israel.
Lo que pasó ayer, hace 2 días, era demasiado para cada país. Israel tiene el derecho de defenderse y yo soy israelí y siempre tuvimos cosas, terror todos los días y ahora tenemos que hacer algo.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau took to social media to condemn the Hamas attacks against Israel and against the rallies in support of the terrorist group. He says the attacks were brutal and horrific. He says he stands united in support of the Israeli people.
Just a few weeks ago, I was in Toronto to celebrate Rosh Hashanah. We talked about our hopes for a better year, a better future. But what happened this weekend was the opposite of hope. Nearly every Jewish Canadian has friends or family in Israel. The interconnectedness of this community is what makes it so strong and incredible, but it is also what makes it so difficult right now. You're feeling so close yet so far away. You're talking to relatives, you're scrolling social media, you want to be able to help directly. My friends, you are not alone.
U.S. President Joe Biden has also condemned the Hamas attacks against Israel. Biden called them sheer evil and vows the American people will stand with the people of Israel.
The bloody hands of the terrorist organization Hamas, a group whose stated purpose for being is to kill Jews. This was an act of sheer evil. More than 1,000 civilians slaughtered, not just killed, slaughtered in Israel. So in this moment, we must be crystal clear. We stand with Israel. We stand with Israel. And we will make sure Israel has what it needs to take care of its citizens, defend itself, and respond to this attack. We're surging additional military assistance, including ammunition and interceptors, to replenish Iron Dome. We're going to make sure that Israel does not run out of these critical assets to defend its cities and its citizens.
Now, as you've heard on BCN, there were a number of rallies held across Canada and the United States in support of Hamas and the recent terrorist attacks in Gaza. Many have been outraged by them and have been speaking out. You can include our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, in that conversation. She joins us now from Los Angeles. Lisa, what do you say to those who believe the rallies were more in support of a free Palestine than in supporting Hamas?
You know, Hal, I tweeted this morning that you could say free Palestine, but you should also say free the hostages. This is the problem with what's going on right now. It's not a political issue. You could be pro-Palestinian, you could be pro-Israel. No one's asking you to take a side, but we are asking for moral clarity on this. This is a moral issue. It's evil. It's evil. If you truly care about the Palestinians, then you'll be the first one to call out Hamas, because the Palestinian people are actually victims, not of Israel, but first victims of their leadership. They're victims of Hamas. They're victims of Palestinian Islamic Jihad. They're victims of Mahmoud Abbas and all the poor leadership that has failed them time and time again. Look at all the money that is being spent on this massacre, on the weapons, on the strategy, on the militants, on these terrorists. Spend that money into turning Gaza into a tropical paradise on the Mediterranean. Spend it on your people. Spend it on your schools where you can teach your children to move on and have a beautiful life, to build and to grow and to learn, instead of how many Jews will I kill today and how many Jews will I kill tomorrow?
Yeah, there's been a lot of outrage on social media that the recently released $6 billion by the Biden administration to Iran helped to fund this attack on Gaza, and more terrorist attacks may be forthcoming across North America.
Of course, and I know a lot of people have pushed back on this, saying the $6 billion hasn't even reached them yet. It doesn't matter. Just talk of $6 billion gives them confidence. It gives them financial confidence. It gives them leverage. It might be the previous installment that they had from the Obama administration. It might just be the Palestinian aid that the Biden administration reinstated after Donald Trump stopped the aid to the Palestinians. Why, Hal? Because we thought that they were spending it on terrorism. And guess what? They will. Even though the naysayers will try to convince us that this money will be spent on humanitarian efforts, the supreme leader himself went on, and the president of Iran himself went on record saying, we will spend this on whatever we want to spend it on. I would believe them, and I would take it from their mouths rather than the mainstream media and the White House.
She's the host of the Foreign Desk in Los Angeles, California, and one of our regular contributors on Bridge City News. Lisa Daftari, thanks so much for your time today. An Alberta minister who has visited Israel many times says he's quite concerned for his friends who live in that part of the world. Greg Musselman with Voice of the Martyrs says some of them are even Palestinians living in the Holy Land.
You know, they've talked about, just literally flattening Gaza. We pray that doesn't happen, because these are innocent people that are being killed. I mean, it's absolutely horrific. And I actually got an email from a friend of mine. I've actually spoken at his church in Bethlehem, which is a part of the West Bank. So that's different than Gaza, people familiar with that part of the world. And the concern there is that, they're Palestinian Christians. So they're seen as somewhat as traitors because they've left Islam, or, they've been, for centuries and generations, they've been Christians. And so they're concerned that the attacks could come on them from the Muslims. When I talk about, Christians in Israel and the Holy Land, many of them are Palestinians from, or Arab backgrounds. This is a very dangerous situation, and it could involve other countries. We hear Iran is backing Hamas, and then Hezbollah up in the north as well. So, there's another area there that Israel is being attacked. And we need to continue to pray. I just can't emphasize that enough.
Greg Musselman is the Minister at Large for Voice of the Martyrs Canada and host of the podcast Closer to the Fire. He'll share more details with BCN's Jeanette Rocher about the persecution of Christians around the world coming up on Wednesday's broadcast. A leaked memo of an email sent to journalists at the CBC says that neither reporters nor anchors are allowed to refer to Hamas as terrorists. Instead, they're supposed to use words like militants, soldiers, or freedom fighters. Hamas is listed as a terrorist organization, not only with the Canadian government, but also with the United States, Britain, the EU, Japan, and Australia. The fact that the CBC is telling their journalists that Hamas cannot be referred to as a terrorist group has upset many, including Toronto Sun political columnist Brian Lilley. Mr. Lilley says Hamas needs to be called what they truly are.
Freedom fighters do not behead innocent civilians. They do not go around kidnapping grandmothers, killing children, kidnapping kids, putting them in cages. They don't, I can't even describe on your airwaves half of the atrocities that I've heard of. Those are not freedom fighters. Those are terrorist acts. But CBC's head of public trust and journalistic standards put out this memo. I confirmed the memo with CBC reporters. Then I confirmed it with a CBC spokesperson who tried to justify it. And they justified it saying that many news organizations around the world have done this, and this is CBC's long-standing policy. None of that justifies what they're doing.
Mr. Lilley will also discuss reaction to the rallies held in support of Hamas across Canada. He'll have details coming up later in our broadcast. Well, we saw more clouds and some precipitation here today in Lethbridge. Jeanette Rocher is now with an early look at the forecast. Jeanette, those rain clouds may be sticking with us for the short term?
Yeah, that's right. We should just see some rain tonight, and then tomorrow we should see things clear up by Thursday. But what a temperature difference we're seeing also from the weekend. So what we're looking at right now is an overnight low of 7 degrees, which is still within that seasonable, but we are looking at a 30% chance of showers. That should happen later this evening, and showers continuing after midnight. Also around midnight, we could see a wind from the west at 30 kilometers per hour. The wind lasting into tomorrow morning, so a high of 14 degrees is what we're seeing for Wednesday, along with a 30% chance of showers. After that, things should clear up and we won't see the rain again, at least for the next week. I'll be back later in the show to give you all those details.
Great, thanks so much. 4 people have been taken into custody following an alleged sexual assault at Chinook High School this week. The incident allegedly took place on October 3rd during after-school hours in a locker room. Police say a 16-year-old was sexually assaulted, and they say the incident was not random. All those involved, including the victim, were members of the school's football program. 3 young males were arrested at the school earlier today. All are under the age of 18. A 4th male who's also under 18 was arrested at the police station. Charges are pending and the investigation is ongoing. No further information will be released until charges have been laid. The Alberta government and Ottawa are teaming up to create up to 22,500 affordable private childcare spaces in the province. $28 million will be allocated to support private operators with some of the costs associated with opening new childcare spaces. Government officials say the expansion through the Early Learning and Childcare Agreement will support licensed childcare spaces in high-need and high-demand communities across Alberta.
Parents who are challenged to find accessible and affordable childcare right now will be happy to know that funding will focus on creating new spaces in communities where they are needed the most. And the grant will help us meet our overall commitment to create over 68,700 new affordable licensed spaces by 2026. More families than ever will see their options expand and their fees go down. And our private childcare industry is going to be instrumental in making that happen. Like many of you, I look forward to seeing the private sector open thousands of new spaces very soon, with many more to follow in the coming years.
The Alberta NDP is calling on the province for urgent funding to support the conversion of empty office space in downtown Calgary into affordable housing. Party leader Rachel Notley says the latest market report from Commercial Real Estate pegs Calgary's downtown office vacancy rate at 30.9%, which is the highest in the country.
The city of Calgary now already has a program in place to convert a lot of these spaces into affordable housing. In fact, it's been very successful to date. It's seen a lot of interest from developers who are able to build units quickly, often cutting design and construction timelines in half compared to new purpose-built rental projects. The program has been so successful that it's been oversubscribed and will run out of city funding very soon. That's why the city's asked for other levels of government, including the provincial government, to provide funding to the program.
The federal and BC governments have signed a new $1.2 billion healthcare agreement. Officials say the bilateral deal is part of the $196 billion health funding offer that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau presented to the provinces and territories back in February. Federal Health Minister Mark Collins says funding is needed to support Canadians who are going through some very difficult times.
I know that 1 in 3 Canadians say they are struggling with their mental health. We don't get to better health unless we take this on. Every one of us, in our homes, in our workplace, and yes, in our health system. In this hard hour, we must be there for each other. We must lift each other up, and we must have a system that is equal to that need. I know that Minister Dix and his government is committed to this truth, as is ours.
This is World Mental Health Day. Now, there's a group in Lviv, Ukraine, which is offering free horse therapy sessions for military personnel to help them as they battle both physical and mental trauma. Ukrainian veterans of the war with Russia visit an equestrian club to help them during their rehabilitation.
Багато хто говорив, що коні допомагають при таких травмах, як в мене. Тобто в мене спинальна травма. Попробуємо. Тому що воно допомагає розслабитись, тому що в мене є болі. І насправді, знаходжусь тут, відволікає багато. Дуже відволікає.
The World Health Organization says 20% of people in countries that have seen war over the past decade suffer from a mental health condition, including PTSD. A bear warning has been issued for the town of Banff here in Alberta. Parks Canada officials say you should be prepared to encounter a bear at any time in the park. They say multiple black and grizzly bears have been frequently spotted near the town site. Officials are asking people to secure all wildlife attractants and to be sure to dispose of food and garbage in bear-proof bins. A Lethbridge couple in their 60s and their dog were killed last week when they were attacked by a grizzly bear in the backcountry near Banff. The 25-year-old bear was put down. Rumors have been circulating online about the potential of a Walmart that could be built in the town of Fort Macleod. Well, now the town is debunking those claims. We reached out to town officials, and Mayor Brent Fader says the rumors were fueled by a post to the town's Facebook page showing an unofficial sign on a site being developed in the community. Fader says there never has been a proposal of a Walmart, adding it was never even on the radar to be considered in the first place. Many would say we've been enjoying a nice, warm, and colorful autumn so far here in southwestern Alberta, but the white stuff will be here before you know it. A popular ski resort with skiers and snowboarders in our region is called Castle Mountain. Cole Fawcett is the group's marketing manager, and he says they actually receive more snow than many of the other resorts in the province, and they usually receive lots of powder.
Castle has some exceptional terrain. It's has a great variety and has great terrain for advanced and expert level skiers, intermediates and beginners too. But one of the things that really sets us apart from some of our competitors is the mountains on which we occupy. We have an abundance of terrain, and we see the most snow on average in the province of Alberta, period, of any other resort.
Be sure to catch the full interview with Cole Fawcett from Castle Mountain Ski Resort and BCN's Naveen Day coming up later in our broadcast. Now, do you remember the story we brought you last week of a 104-year-old Chicago woman who became the world's oldest person to go skydiving? Well, sadly, a week after a skydive, she passed away. Her friends said Dorothy Hoffner actually didn't take the plunge to break a record, but instead went skydiving because she had so much fun doing it during her first jump when she turned 100. The 104-year-old Hoffner made a tandem jump from 13,500 feet in Ottawa, Illinois on October 1st while tethered to a certified instructor. You can see she had a lot of fun there. Hoffner sadly was found passed away on Monday morning by staff at her senior living facility. Officials say it appears as though she passed away in her sleep. Rest in peace, Dorothy, and thanks for being such an inspiration. Well, we experienced quite a bit of gray clouds and some light rain across much of southwestern Alberta today, and the moisture shall remain with us for the next day or so. Full weather details are on deck. We had lots of cloud cover and a little bit of rain across much of southwestern Alberta today. Jeanette Roche is here now with all of the weather details. Jeanette, the rain clouds may be leaving us fairly soon.
Yeah, after tonight and tomorrow, things should clear up a little bit, but we are looking at that 30% chance of showers this evening and into tomorrow, Wednesday as well. High of 14 degrees on Wednesday. Mainly cloudy skies on, actually mostly on Friday. On Thursday, we could see some patches of sun there as well. High of 13 degrees, 12 for a high on Friday, and then we're going to see those scattered clouds, partly cloudy skies for Saturday and Sunday. High of 15 and 17 on those days, respectively. And then on Monday, ending out that 7-day forecast with a high of 18 degrees. So we are going to dip down a little bit, but still remaining seasonable. As you can see, the average high for this time of year, 16 degrees, average low 129. That was our high temperature on this day back in 1942. And in 1960, we were sitting at -8, which is very chilly for this time of year. 7:45, that's when the sun rose this morning. Sunset this evening at 6:51, giving us 11 hours and 6 minutes of daylight now. Okay, on the west coast, let's see what's happening in Victoria. On the island, looking at a 30% chance of showers. Actually make that 40% chance of showers and clearing up by the afternoon, 12 degrees for a high there. It's 30% chance of showers in Vancouver tomorrow with the rain clouds clearing up a little bit by the afternoon, 15 for a high there. 17 in Edmonton tomorrow with showers ending in the afternoon. High of 10 degrees in Calgary tomorrow. 5 to 10 millimeters of rain expected, though, and 20 km/h winds. So it's going to rain quite a little bit in Calgary tomorrow. Across the rest of the prairies, though, looking at mainly clear skies for Saskatchewan. Saskatoon sitting at a high of 15 degrees, 16 for a high in Regina. Not bad at all. High of 12 degrees in Winnipeg with a mix of sun and cloud there. As we get over into central Canada, we're looking at 30% chance of showers in both Toronto and Ottawa tomorrow. High of 15 in Toronto, 13 for a high in Ottawa, high of 14 in Montreal. Montreal looking at showers clearing up by the afternoon as well. Now in Fredericton, we are looking at a risk of frost this evening, but a 30% chance of showers tomorrow. High of 15 degrees. Halifax looking at scattered showers, high of 18. 30% chance of showers expected in Charlottetown tomorrow with a high of 17 degrees. And 14 is expected to be the high tomorrow in St. John's, looking at some showers and also some fog dissipating by the morning there. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
The International Monetary Fund is warning the world economy faces new uncertainty from the war between Israel and Hamas. The IMF's chief economist says the agency is monitoring the situation closely, noting that oil prices have risen by about 4% in the past several days. General Motors expected to resume regular production at its Ontario facilities today. This follows a tentative deal that was reached with striking workers represented by Unifor. The agreement came less than 24 hours after workers hit the picket lines. Union President Lana Payne says the terms include improvements to pensions, retiree income supports, and moving temporary workers into permanent positions. The new tentative deal covers almost 4,300 auto workers at GM facilities in Oshawa, St. Catharines, and Woodstock, Ontario. Electric vehicles have become central to negotiations and the U.S. auto workers strike. General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis are planning to add 10 battery cell plants in the U.S., most of them joint ventures with South Korean companies. The United Auto Workers Union wants to represent workers at the proposed battery factories and win them the same hourly pay and benefits as union workers. The UAW strike is now in its third week, and contract negotiations this year could have long-lasting consequences as the auto industry transforms itself. Donald Trump's longtime finance chief has taken the witness stand as the former president's civil trial enters its second week. Alan Weiselberg is also defendant in the lawsuit launched by New York Attorney General Letitia James. The suit alleges he engineered Trump's financial statements to meet Trump's demands that they reflect increases in his net worth and that Weiselberg signed off on lofty valuations for assets. Trump denies any wrongdoing. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was up 255 points on the day to finish at 19,501. The Dow was up 134 points to 33,739. The S&P 500 was up 22 on the day to 4358, and the Nasdaq was up 78 points to 13,562. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down 47 cents to 85.91 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 2 cents to $3.40 US. Gold was even on the day at $18.60.39 US an ounce, and silver was down 4 cents to $21.84 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $9.80 per bushel, barley's at $7.51, canola's at $15.57, and corn is at $8.94 per bushel. Live cattle were up 20 cents to $182.58, feeder cattle were up $1.05 to $247.95, and lean hogs were down 3 cents to $81.95. The Canadian dollar was down slightly over the past 24 hours to $73.61 US. Recapping one of our top stories, world leaders have condemned the attacks in Gaza, which left so many people dead. Reports say in total more than 1,800 people have been killed on both sides, including 250 young Israelis who were attending a music festival in the area. U.S. President Joe Biden condemned the terrorist group Hamas, calling it multi-pronged attack on Israel, sheer evil. Biden expressed his horrors about reports of torture inflicted by the terrorists on civilians. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau also condemned the attack in Gaza. There are certain news organizations, including the CBC, which refuse to refer to Hamas as a terrorist organization. Political columnist from the Toronto Sun, Brian Lilly, will explain why in more detail shortly. When you see news happening in your community, be sure to drop us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. And if you missed any of today's top local stories, check out our website, bridgecitynews.ca. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has promised to wipe out the terrorist group known as Hamas following the killing of hundreds of young people who were attending a music festival near Gaza. Now, since that attack, there have been rallies in support of both Israeli and Hamas groups, which took place all across the country. Now, to talk about this in more detail is Sun political columnist Brian Lilly, who joins us once again from Toronto. Brian, there have been various statements denouncing the rallies in support of Hamas, including from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. There have also been calls to ban the rallies supporting this well-known terrorist organization.
Yeah, I don't see the ban happening, but I'm happy to see politicians, including Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Ontario Premier Doug Ford, a lot of mayors, opposition leaders denouncing these rallies and say that we shouldn't be basically glorifying what are terrorist acts. Now, here's part of the difficulty in banning them. The group that was leading up the rally that I attended yesterday, I attended both the rally in support of Hamas, and it was in support of Hamas, not in support of Palestinians, and I attended the evening rally with 15,000 people in support of Israel. The group that met in downtown Toronto said, we're about supporting Palestinians. We are denouncing the war. They were also celebrating what had happened. You do not make the chants that you make, such as from the river to the sea, or only one solution, Intifada revolution, or some of the others that were taking place in Arabic that, if you translate out, some very horrific things being chanted. You're not doing that the day after or 2 days after these horrific attacks, as you say, young people at a music festival for peace being slaughtered, more than 260 of them, or elderly women, children. We're now hearing of babies mutilated. You don't go in a rally and chant these things unless you are supporting Hamas. And the chant from the rally to the sea, Palestine will be free, that may sound benign until you understand what it means. And what it means is from the River Jordan to the Mediterranean is going to belong to Hamas and the Palestinians. That means no Israel, no Jews in the area. That is what that chant is all about. Calling for revolution, backing what was happening. That is despicable. So glad to see it, but also heartened to see a very large, peaceful event at Mel Lastman Square in the north end of Toronto, led by the United Jewish Appeal, politicians from all levels and all political stripes there, they stand in support with Israel and her right to defend herself, standing with the Jewish community in Toronto. Canada has the 4th largest Jewish community in the world. And this was a rally that ended with prayers for peace and prosperity for everyone that lives in the region, not just for the Jewish people. Marked difference between an angry rally and a prayerful rally.
Brian, I saw a video of one of the rallies that took place in Calgary in support of Hamas, and there was one lone man standing against this group supporting Hamas, yelling at them, and then the police showed up saying, you're a terrorist organization, why are you allowing this to happen? He's asking the police. The police arrested the man in handcuffs and hauled him away, and the people with Hamas, cheering on Hamas, were cheering his arrest. It was just unbelievable. Brian, there was a joint statement from 5 of our G7 and NATO allies denouncing the Hamas attack and defending Israel, including that Israel will set the conditions for a peaceful and integrated Middle East region. But Canada was not part of this statement. Why not?
We weren't, in my view, because our allies simply don't trust us. Now, liberals are reaching at straws made of paper, apparently, because they're disintegrating quickly, saying, oh, no, Canada was never meant to be part of this. This was a statement from the Quint. I've talked to people who worked in the Harper government, in the Chrétien government, in the Mulroney government. None of them remember the Quint, which is a very loose organization that periodically will have informal conversations, periodically put out statements. They've never been the go-to place for major world events like this. These were 5 of our NATO allies, 5 of our G7 allies. As I mentioned earlier, Canada has the 4th largest Jewish population in the world, after the United States, which is first, then Israel, then France, then Canada. Our Jewish population is almost as big as Germany, Britain, and Italy combined. They were all on the call. And they are not nuclear powers. They happen to host American nuclear missiles. So do other countries who are members of NATO. They weren't on the call either. Canada was excluded because our allies simply don't trust us like they used to. And this is another example. And we can go back to the G20, where Canada was frozen out. where Joe Biden is, you've seen the photo of him angrily pointing a finger in Trudeau's face as Justin Trudeau looks very unpleasant and not pleased with what's happening. Our allies don't trust us, whether it's the AUKUS movement, a new intelligence sharing agreement between 3 of the Five Eyes. They are pulling away from us because they don't see us as a dependable ally. I'll say that I thought the Prime Minister, even Jagmeet Singh, and of course Pierre Poilievre, they all made solid statements in support of Israel. But are we steadfast? Are we sure? Or are we going to start moving on the one hand, and on the other hand, let's be an honest broker, both sides need to, et cetera, et cetera. All those things that countries too often do when they're trying to be too cute by half.
Brian, while world leaders have denounced Hamas as a terrorist organization, the CBC is allegedly refusing to do so. Now, a leaked email to reporters over the weekend reminded them not to use the term terrorist, but instead militant or soldier when referring to Hamas. Brian, Hamas is not only listed by the Canadian government as a terrorist organization, but also by the United States, Britain, the EU, Japan, and Australia. So what's the issue here? Why not call a spade a spade?
CBC doesn't believe in calling organizations terrorist unless, and I went through their website and I went through past stories, if it's an organization that calling them a terrorist fits their political agenda, they'll do it. They, just this past summer, we're calling an Ottawa man who was on trial for being part of a neo-Nazi group. They were freely using the word terrorism and terrorist in a story on his case. And, if this group that he belongs to is a terrorist group, I'm fine with that. But don't then turn around and say, we can't call Hamas that. It's as if they've adopted that romantic slogan that in my view, doesn't even pass a first-year poli-sci course. Oh, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. No, freedom fighters do not behead innocent civilians. They do not go around kidnapping grandmothers, killing children, kidnapping kids, putting them in cages. They don't, I can't even describe on your airwaves half of the atrocities that I've heard of. Those are not freedom fighters. Those are terrorist acts. But CBC's head of public trust and journalistic standards put out this memo. I confirmed the memo with CBC reporters. Then I confirmed it with a CBC spokesperson who tried to justify it. And they justified it saying that many news organizations around the world have done this, and this is CBC's long-standing policy. None of that justifies what they're doing. BBC is under similar pressure in the UK. Why aren't they calling Hamas a terrorist organization? Other news organizations that are adopting the same language of equivocation, they're under pressure. This is not the time for saying on the one hand and on the other hand. What Hamas did was, those were terrorist acts on the weekend. I don't know how you can describe it in any other way, but I know, like, CBC reporters are not all happy about this, but this is coming from the executive suite, and these are the orders they have to follow.
Wow. Brian, still with the CBC, the Ombudsman has taken them to task over a story that claimed a push to reduce fertilizer use. This is also an issue the Dutch farmers have had with their government. They've been protesting in large amounts across the country. What did the Canadian Ombudsman have to say? What did he find?
He said that CBC, well, they won't call Hamas a terrorist group. The Ombudsman said, well, you're being too free with terms like far right in defining people politically. You are calling things conspiracy theories when maybe you should say there isn't evidence to support this claim. That they're making judgment calls, that kind of judgment calls they won't make with Hamas. They're making them about, well, they made it about me. One of the stories that prompted this was from August of last year. And I had started writing about the Dutch farmer protests and how Canadian farmers were concerned about what the Trudeau government wanted to do. And the reporter from CBC included a line about me in the Toronto Sun, making it sound like we were part of a far-right echo chamber and misinformation, because I said that what the government's plan means a 30% fertilizer reduction. He took a very small snippet of my column. And I look back at my work. I kept saying, the government says they want a 30% reduction in nitrogen emissions. Farmers groups say that means a 30% reduction in fertilizer, because right now there's very little way for them to accomplish it otherwise. given the already good farming practices they're following. CBC didn't put that in. They just, take the quote they want, claim it's far right, claim it's disinformation. They did the same with the Western Standard and a bunch of other media outlets. They slandered conservative MPs. And the ombudsman said, you're going too far. You can't be denouncing people with terms like far right without justification. And that's what you're doing here. So it was an interesting juxtaposition that this came out just at the same time as CBC is refusing to call Hamas a terrorist organization.
Last week, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was asked if he would retract comments that portrayed parents concerned about gender ideology in schools as hateful. Now, the Prime Minister said he never said such a thing. Brian, what does the evidence suggest?
The evidence suggests that the Prime Minister is unfamiliar with the commandment against not telling the truth. Is that a generous way of putting it? On the day that parents were rallying, on September 20th, just before 2 p.m. Eastern, I think it was, he put out a statement equating these rallies with homophobia, transphobia, biphobia, and other phobias, and then said that he stands against hate and all its manifestations. So he was essentially labeling these protests as bigoted and hateful, and he's going to stand against them. He was called out by lots of people, lots of groups, but I think the one that got under his skin was the Muslim Association of Canada, saying, look, as parents, we have concerns about what is being taught in the schools. We are not being hateful on this front. Trudeau tried to backtrack by saying he never said these things. That is what he was clearly saying. It's what he clearly was saying in June when he described those who stand against or who stand with was then just New Brunswick Premier Blaine Higgs, that they are from the far right. He described them as American. He sat with a Muslim parent in Calgary during a visit in Stampede, telling him that this is all just far right American misinformation about your concerns about the school. I'm sure you've seen that video that was shared widely on social media. Trudeau has described people with concerns about these issues in horrible terms and then turns around and says, well, I never said that. Yes, you did. And you've got to do more than what he said last week to be able to get past this. Now, obviously, war going on. It'll be a while before this issue is at the top of the headlines again. But I think parents are still going to remember where he stood on this issue.
Brian, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh has been quite vocal in saying that the Trudeau government is failing Canadians, yet he's not going to bring them down. Lots of people are saying it's because of Singh's pension. Now, you haven't put a lot of stock into the idea until now. Why the change of heart?
Well, I think you've even asked me about it, and I said, I don't think that Jagmeet Singh would keep him in power for his pension because his pension's not going to be very big. And compared to an MP's pension, his pension won't be very big if and when he gets it. But cumulatively, it's going to be big. So let me run down the numbers. I had our friends at the Canadian Taxpayers Federation run the numbers through the formula, and they said if Jagmeet Singh makes it to the next election and then is no longer an elected MP, he'll be 46 years old. He'll have to wait until he's 55 to collect his pension, but at that point, it'll be worth $45,000 a year. At age 60, it'll be worth $54,000 a year. And they said, based on the indexation and how it goes, but if he reaches the age of 90, which for a man of his age, that generation is going to live to about 90, he would collect cumulatively $2.3 million.
Wow.
And when I saw that, I thought, okay, Jagmeet Singh now has 2.3 million reasons not to vote down the Trudeau government, even though on a daily basis, he denounces them. He denounces them on affordability, on housing. He claims that Justin Trudeau is in the back pocket of the grocery CEOs, of developers. He claims that Trudeau is destroying healthcare, that he's twiddling his thumbs. That's what he said last week. The Trudeau government's twiddling their thumbs as the country burns and they're not doing climate change action. These are Jagmeet Singh's biggest issues, and he claims every day that the government is not doing anything on them, and yet he's the only reason they're still in power. So why is that? If he believed his own words, he'd vote them down. Is the pension the only reason? Maybe, maybe not, but 2.3 million, that's a lot of reasons for him personally not to vote no confidence in this government.
political columnist for the Toronto Sun. Brian Lilly, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you. The winter season sees southern Alberta powdered with the white stuff, and I'm talking about snow, which attracts lots of avid skiers to the area. And Cole Fawcett is the go-to guy for all things related to preparing for an exhilarating time on the slopes. He offers valuable insights into the meticulous process of readying the ski hill for the season, shedding light on the behind-the-scenes efforts that ensure optimal conditions and what to watch out for. Cole, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Naveen. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. And now, as the ski season at Castle Mountain approaches, what are the key steps you recommend for avid skiers and snowboarders to prepare themselves for the season on the slopes?
Yeah, great question. So if we can get, we don't want to lapse into not working out and not being active through the fall season. I think that's all too tempting for so many of us as the days get a little bit shorter and the temperatures get a bit cooler. So trying our best to keep active and even if we can get a little bit of strength training in to keep those legs and that core strong for the coming ski season, because we're going to need those muscles when the snow hits the ground. Aside from that, we want to be looking at our gear, making sure that it's ready for the season. And for most of us, that's only going to necessitate a tune-up of skis or snowboards. So a wax or a sharpen of the edges or a grind of the base to make it nice and smooth and flat again. And of course, that wax on top to make sure that it slides really nice on the snow. So I think those are probably the two major things. And aside from that, it pays to think ahead with respect to looking at season passes or frequency cards, what we call our WOW card, to save money, of course, before the season gets here.
So you talked about physically preparing yourself for the season. Now, before we started recording this interview, I revealed to you that I'm not really into skiing. I'm very much a novice. So what would you recommend to someone like myself who is probably going to be hitting the slopes for the first time this year?
So for first-timers, there are a lot of great resources out there. Visiting any resort's website and exploring lesson options is going to be probably the most pivotal thing. And of course, I mean, the other things that you probably go without saying, like making sure that you have, a nice warm jacket, nice warm snow pants or ski pants, appropriate clothing in general terms is really essential. First timers generally aren't going to run out to a ski shop and buy all the equipment they need, like ski boots, skis, or snowboard and snowboard boots. And that's certainly not necessary. All of the resorts within Alberta and British Columbia and further afar are going to offer equipment rentals. So usually you're going to want to look at a beginner snowboard or a beginner ski package. And by package, we mean it's going to come with instruction. It's going to come with the equipment you need in terms of that technical equipment, like the skis or the snowboard and the boots and the bindings. It will also come with a helmet, which we highly recommend. Nobody wants to knock the noggin while they're out there. And it will come with a ticket, a lift ticket, which is a little thing that you'll just put on your person that allows you access to the ski lifts. And so when you combine that equipment, the instruction, and the lift ticket, those are usually all packaged together at a reasonably attractive rate and on a full day or a half day basis. And that is the best way to introduce yourself to the sport, bar none.
Absolutely, because it sounds like it's all inclusive. It has everything you need there. So could you provide insights into what goes on behind the scenes and the process for preparing the ski hill for the upcoming season?
So, I mean, preparing for the season to come really starts with the end of the season prior. So, as a resort, we're going through processes like establishing budgets and guidelines for operational dates, as an example, setting those dates out for when we're going to be open the following season, putting plans in place to get enough staff. And then on a more technical term, there's a team of about 24 staff members at Castle Mountain Resort specifically that are here full-time year-round, getting things ready. And a good deal of those folks are on the outside operations or maintenance side of our business. And they're in a situation where they're doing all kinds of off-season preventative maintenance on lifts, on snowcats, on other equipment, such as buildings, of course, snowmaking equipment. So the snow machines that make snow early season to kind of get us that great base on which we start the season on. So we're not, encountering as many other obstacles that may lie beneath the snow coverage. And then we have a number of off-season projects too, kind of lumped on top of all of those normal things that we just have to do each and every season, that normal off-season maintenance. So in terms of what we're doing this season at Castle, we have purchased another new snowcat, which aren't cheap. They're multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Wow.
When you make that investment. Wonderfully capable machines, but extraordinarily expensive. We have added some snowmaking equipment to our fleet to get us in a position where we can be open reliably when we say we intend to be. There is some building maintenance going on, some new roofing on our staff accommodation, some interior upgrades within the day lodge and our cafeteria and our washrooms, and then some equipment upgrades with one of our lifts, the Huckleberry chairlift, is getting a new digital drive, which is more or less the brain of the lift and will help us increase the reliability of that lift for years to come.
Now, you've touched on this a bit with improvements you've made to the resort, but for those that might be new to Castle Mountain, what are the distinctive features of your resort that really set it apart from the others, and what should visitors be particularly excited about?
Well, first and foremost, if you're from the greater Lethbridge area, this is the closest Rocky Mountain resort to anybody living in greater Lethbridge, or really anybody in the southwestern portion of the province. So that in and of itself is important to note. Castle has some exceptional terrain. It's has a great variety and has graded terrain for advanced and expert level skiers, intermediates and beginners too. But one of the things that really sets us apart from some of our competitors is the mountains on which we occupy. We have an abundance of terrain, and we see the most snow on average in the province of Alberta, period, of any other resort.
Wow.
Aside from that, there is a certain, I think, different feel to Castle. It's more laid back, it's more homey. It is owned and operated by the community. We have over 200 shareholders who are almost exclusively Albertans and who put their money into the resort basically to see it continue to exist kind of from the mid-90s onward, when it wasn't quite as vibrant, and it wasn't in a position where it was sustainable. And today, at least at this point in time, we are on a path to sustainability and on a path to upgrading some of the assets that we have here, some of the older lifts, as an example.
And beyond skiing itself, resorts often offer a variety of activities and events. Could you share some of the events and activities that Castle Mountain has planned for this upcoming season?
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of the specific dates, we're in a situation where those are still being mulled over, I guess you could say. Most of our programming is going to be ski or snowboard related, whether it's an on-mountain scavenger hunt, or it's a ski race, or a freestyle competition, or a big mountain competition. Most of what we have here is going to take place on the snowy slopes in some way, shape, or form. As far as non-skiing stuff goes, we do offer a cross-country ski network here at the resort. It's pretty small, but it exists. And adjacent to us within the Castle Provincial Park, there are some maintained, groomed cross-country skiing and snowshoe trails, very close proximity to us. And I mean, aside from that, the other thing that we have that's unique to Castle and is actually very unique in North America is we have kind of what most people would think of as a ski resort with ski lifts, and you take the lift up and you ski down a run, and it may be all natural terrain or like powder, or it may be groomed nightly. But we also have something called cat skiing or snow cat skiing. And that's where you actually hop into one of these snow cats, and it has a cabin on the back of it that's kind of like a mini bus in a sense, but it's capable of climbing snow-covered mountains. And cat skiing for us is a very exclusive experience. It's only 12 people per day, 5 days a week, and they get about 1,000 acres of skiable terrain all to themselves. So that's very unique. A lot of cat skiing operations are like in the backcountry. Sometimes you'll fly in via helicopter, or there'll be heli skiing operations. But at Castle, we actually have both of those operations kind of side by each. In fact, you actually take one of the chairlifts to get up to the cat, and then every run you go up the lift, up the cat, ski down, and then repeat that several times a day. So
that cat
it's quite
skiing
unique.
sounds a lot of fun. So what recommendations do you have for visitors regarding maintenance and selecting the right equipment for the conditions they might occur at the mountain?
Yeah, well, some might say, especially if you're in the ski industry, you can never have enough pairs of skis or snowboards. But really, that's not a feasible thing for most of the population.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, you want to select. I'm not a great expert in this field. There are some great experts in equipment selection at retail stores across Alberta and beyond, of course, and some great resources online. But certainly doing your homework, putting some time into understanding what ski or snowboard works best in what conditions, and putting some thought into where you like to go on the mountains and what type of terrain you like to access. Those are all really valuable things to put a little bit of time and thought into. But certainly there's no substitute for visiting your local ski or snowboard shop. These folks that are generally employed there live, eat, and breathe the sport.
That's amazing. Now, snow quality is a major factor for skiers. How does Castle Mountain manage the snowmaking and grooming operations to ensure consistent and high quality snow cover throughout the season? You talked about purchasing new equipment in the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So prior to 2019, we didn't make snow here at all. We relied solely on what Mother Nature brought us. And that is in itself a huge risk to the business, of course. But we have, over the last, 4 years primarily, we've invested more than $2 million in snowmaking infrastructure. And this is a big part of the reason why, right this moment in time, we're, not announcing, new lift infrastructure going in, because those are extraordinarily expensive, pardon me. We're still working on paying down, some of the debt from the major infrastructure that we've put in, and most notably snowmaking. So generally speaking, we are making snow where we have that underground infrastructure. So maybe I'll back up. In order to make snow, you need high pressure water and high pressure air. And that stuff doesn't just magically appear on the mountain. It's piped up there. So underground, there are kilometers of steel pipe for water. And then that is connected and electrical too. So we need electricity. So we've got electrical cabling and water piping going up the mountain in various locations. And the snow machine or the snow maker is connected to that at where we need it, at those pedestals, I guess we call them, or outlets for water and electricity. So if you can just imagine the infrastructure that's in a city to get water to your home, as an example, we have something similar to that here, except on a mountain in the Rockies. So that's really pivotal. Most resorts are going to have this. And of course, we're no exception in this day and age. And so you connect your snowmaking equipment, your guns, sometimes they're referred to, or machines. And basically that high pressure water is thrust up into the air with high pressure air, and it falls down as snow. Slightly more scientific than that. But when it's cold enough, it'll just fall down as snow. So when we talk about getting ready for the season, snowmaking is a really essential part of this. We spend dozens and dozens and dozens of days and hundreds, if not thousands, of human hours on making it. And it's all in the name of getting a good surface down in the event that Mother Nature doesn't deliver. And even if she does, it serves as a great base to help protect us and our equipment from some of the natural hazards that lie beneath.
Well, that was very educational and informative for me. I hope that our viewers got a lot out of that too. That was Cole Fawcett with the Castle Mountain Ski Resort. Cole, thanks so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I'm Naveen Day. On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, thanks for watching.